Hello friends, welcome back to the bench. Today we have x370 killer SLI ASRock motherboard with AM4 socket that doesn't turn on. We spent about 2 days now searching through this board and trying to find why it's not turning on. At the moment my suspicion is that SIO chip is faulty because it doesn't turn on, and that's the chip that turns it on. And there could be two reasons why it's not turning on. Number one, it is faulty. Number two, something else is wrong, and that's why SIO is not turning on the board. So let me show you quickly how normally I diagnose the power issues on these boards. It doesn't really matter as long as it's the ATX power supply with it. It's very easy to find where your fault might be, and provided that you have a board view for it. I don't have a schematic, and that would be a lot more helpful, because on the schematic you get a lot of extra information, some engineering notes, and obviously the circuitry. With just a board view, well, it's kind of like going with a multimeter and finding traces and stuff. But on top of that, you also have a description of the chips used. So this schematic or this board view is not going to tell you much as far as the pins. So it's best to just see those on the actual data sheet. That helps a lot. And here I'm going to return to that in a second, but here we have a power on sequence for this SIO chip that I suspect is faulty. So without knowing the board, because obviously I went through it last 2 days, so I'm very familiar with where everything is placed and how it works. But how do I start? Where we start is the power connection. So first that we are interested in is the standby. If we have standby present, if this chip is actually powered via standby, and it is, this is this is a pull-up resistor to standby, because this is the PS on. But yes, the chip is powered. The second thing, oh right, because we don't even know that this is the chip, because first let's grab our PS on, right? As long as this is pulled low, the ATX PSU will turn on, otherwise it will remain in standby. And this is pulled up by a resistor, the 1K resistor to standby, and one capacitor to ground, right? And the only place on the board where this goes is a transistor. We don't know which one because it's not installed in this revision, and through what is it, through 33 ohm resistor, it goes to our pin, which is called, appropriately enough, PS on. So this is how this chip turns on the power supply. So this chip is responsible for that. Where does it get its signal from? From the power button. Power button is here, and through this resistor we go to this chip, but this chip only controls LEDs, so it's not essential. We go to our chip. This is the resistor, and this is the resistor. Yeah. To the pin appropriately named power button. So once we pull this low and our power button pin is pulled up, and I did confirm that's pin 61, it is high, and so it is both pulled up by internal resistor, and there's external resistor as well that pulls it up. And by connecting it to the ground, the PSU should turn on, which in turn, because normally how do you diagnose whether it's the chip or not, right? Is the chip working? Is the chip faulty? First, do we have power? We do. Second, do we have clock? We don't. We don't have it. This is our clock pin, and it goes to pin 16, and let's not do on this one. Sorry, and it goes to pin CK 48 megahertz, appropriately enough. This is our output. This is ground, and this is our enable 48M enable, which is basically a VCC for this crystal, right? And it's supplied by this resistor 10K, which is good, and from SIO 3 volts. SIO 3 volts is controlled by this P-channel MOSFET, and that's our source, that's our drain, right? That's where we get 3 volts, and this is our gate. Our gate is controlled by another N-channel MOSFET right over here, and our N-channel MOSFET pulls it to ground. This is our, well, it basically connects these two, right? It pulls this to ground, and this is our control pin, and our control pin goes to power OK, which is, well, power good. So this pin goes high when ATX power supply detects no issues, and this pin needs to go high after 100 milliseconds and before 500 milliseconds. So you have about 400 milliseconds when it's considered that PSU is good. And this whole thing also is connected to our Super IO Power OK PS, right? So if the Power OK doesn't go up in the specified time, the PSU is considered faulty and the board will not turn on, which is not the case in our case, but good to remember that, because sometimes it is the PSU that is actually broken and not the board. And so this is kind of interesting to me, that this chip doesn't require a clock signal until it actually turns on the PSU to get 3 volts to in turn supply the crystal. So that was kind of interesting to me, but this is the first time I'm analyzing this chip, so maybe that is indeed how it works. But what's more interesting is this power on sequence. It doesn't make sense to me because as it states that it's a sequence. If it's a sequence, then I assume that first CPU V-core must go high, then VLDT, then VDIM for memory, then V-core enable, then power OK, and then PS on goes down. So it seems to me like it's in the exact opposite direction, because until you pull the PS on low, you're not gonna have V-core, and you're not gonna have V-core. V-core is controlled by these coils, or it comes from these coils, which are controlled by these MOSFETs over here, and I don't remember which pin it was. Well, I see it here. Yeah, VCC. So VCC, and this is capacitor, this is resistor, goes directly to the 5 volts on our ATX connector, which means this voltage is not going to be present until we pull down PS on, which is this one. So all that needs to happen first before we actually have even a clock signal here, before we have V-core, before we have 3.3, this one, right, or 3 volts, right? Because even if this transistor opens, if it's got nothing on the drain, it's still not going to work, right? So I'm kind of in the loop with this, right? There's no way you can have a CPU V-core until PS-on is pulled down, and you're not gonna have power OK, and you're not gonna have anything else. So this is kind of, I don't know if this is or maybe, but still, how would that be a sequence? But it makes sense if you read it in the opposite direction, right? From the bottom up. So first, PS-on goes low, right? That's how I read it. Then power OK goes low, but power OK should be high. If the power OK is low, then it's not gonna turn on. Yeah, I don't know how to read this. I have no idea. But that is pretty much our issue. So the board doesn't turn on. Actually, let's take a look at the board. What's happening with it, and maybe let's do camera. This is our Super IO. And in this revision, this transistor is missing, right? Our 4th pin is the one that pulls the PS-on low. Now, when I turn it on, right, you can see LEDs lighting up under the chipset, right? So I can force it to turn on by pulling that pin down, and you will see that the PSU will turn on, because we're just going to simulate as if the chip actually pulled down the pin, right? And let's go scope and camera. So I'm gonna pull it to ground. Just find it here. I think it was this resistor, yeah. I don't know. Is it not this resistor? Oh yeah. Okay, so the PS-on, the power supply turned on, and the board is working. Well, the board is working. We have V-core, we have 3.3. Every power supply on this board, every converter, is working correctly. I also analyzed it under a thermal camera to see that perhaps maybe something is getting hot, and that's why the Super IO is not turning it on. But no, nothing's getting hot, or at least I didn't see it. Maybe I'm not too handy with thermal camera just yet. I'm new to using it, but I didn't see anything suspicious. And the only other option that I was considering that I couldn't check would be that should the board turn on without CPU. This is the first one, AM4, that I'm doing, because I'm used to the LGA 1151 and basically Intel processors. This one's AMD. Perhaps that is the case because the Super IO does route directly to the CPU, but I assume for the purposes of detecting voltages and that kind of stuff. I don't think it necessarily requires CPU to turn on. It is required to load the BIOS, and basically the board will not post without a CPU, and I'm aware of that. But without CPU, it should still turn on. It should, because how else would it otherwise know that the CPU is not there, that it's not gonna supply voltage, right? But I was thinking that maybe some pins are used in this socket to actually tell the chip, tell the Super IO that the CPU is present, and if it's not gonna turn on. Maybe because I don't see anything. Usually when the Super IO is damaged, is faulty, it usually has a short on it, and that's usually obvious. With the the PS on. Let's actually do that right now. So on PS on, we should have a standby voltage, right? So that's also the easiest thing that can be checked. And we do have it, right? We have 3.3, not standby voltage, because standby voltage is 5 volts. But we do have 3.3. It seems like it's jumping a little bit, but it's because of the tool I'm using. The voltage is stable. I confirmed that the clock, we have a clock signal when I pull the pin down to turn it on. I do have a clock signal on the crystal. I do have all the voltages. Everything seems to be electrically working. It's just that this chip for some reason doesn't want to turn on the board. I will put the CPU in once I get it, because I had to order one, and they are crazy expensive. Much more expensive than Intel for some reason, for AM4 socket, but I managed to find some cheap used one for about 30 bucks, a little less than 30 bucks. Very good price. You rarely see those below $50-$60, and they go as high as 300. So very expensive CPUs for just testing. So hopefully when I get it, it will not be faulty. I think it wasn't faulty. And I was actually looking for faulty ones, and they are also expensive. You can hardly get anything below $30, below $40 actually. So these are expensive CPUs for some reason. Maybe they're so efficient, I don't know. Alright, so once I get the CPU, I'll test that. But for now, I think the Super IO is damaged, is faulty. Then I turn it off. The board itself this is a pretty good board. The reason I started working on this board, I was supposed to receive another board, pretty much this one, with some fault. I don't remember where, but since I already had a board view for it, I figured it was available for like $15-$20, this one. So I figured, let's get it. Let's try to get it fixed. But I'm stumped. I cannot figure this out, and the board is actually pretty expensive. You can sell this board, had it been working. You can sell it for $100 easy, and open box go for over $200, and they sell. So this must be pretty good board. Too bad it's not working. And one thing that I love on these boards are the connectors, the SATA connectors on the back over here. It's awesome, and that way you can put like really good GPU over here, and you don't have to worry about the wiring and cables that go to your storage. In addition, you can put 2 M.2 solid state drives. Both can be long, so that's awesome. And obviously 246 PCI Express lanes, 2 full lanes, and 3-4 I don't know how many lanes is in there, but reduced. 4 memory banks. Awesome device, and crap load of external USB connectors. There's 1, 2, 3, and I think there was the COM and LPT ports. That's pretty good too. HD audio, I'm not sure what that is for, and another 2 USBs over here. So we get 4 or 5, and 2 USB ports per each, I believe. So this has ridiculous number of USBs, plus 5 over here, USB-C, the HDMI, PS2, which I don't know if anyone uses those anymore, but okay, and the optical in output, or I don't know if it's output, it's probably output, optical. So that's pretty good. I do have a device that converts it here somewhere from optical connector to regular left-right. So I will test if that works, if I manage to get this board working. But next step would be basically to just replace this chip, right? To just eliminate it, right? Is it faulty? Is it not faulty? Well, let's replace it and see if that helps. But to replace it, you need to have another chip, and it would have to, because obviously you can't buy it anywhere. At least I didn't see it. Second of all, it does have programming in it. So if I replace it with a blank chip, it will most likely not work. There is a little piece of software in that chip, and actually that chip could also be, because it has UART and it has a few other ways of connecting to it, so we could confirm whether this chip is faulty or not. But that would require a lot of effort to actually hack into this chip. So I think the easiest solution is to just replace it, and that's what I would do if I had one. Unfortunately, this board was the only one on eBay in faulty state. All the others are working, and you have to spend over $100 on it. So I'm not gonna spend $100 to fix something that I bought for 20 and possibly can sell for 100, right? That wouldn't make economical sense. Not that I do it for money, but I don't want to lose money on it, you know what I mean? But this is our board. Unfortunately not working, but I like it. It's visually appealing to me. Well, that's it. Too bad we couldn't fix this one, but I figured I'll just show you how I diagnose them, and sometimes I even manage to fix them. In any case, thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you guys in the next one.